You wake up to the sound of drums. Not the fun kind you hear at a music festival. No, these are deep, booming military drums, the kind that make your stomach drop because they usually mean one thing: someone about to die. You're lying on the damp ground, the smell of mud, smoke, and unwashed bodies slamming into your nose like a brick wall. Your back aches from sleeping on what might technically be called earth, but feels more like sleeping on a pile of angry rocks. You sit up, and that's when you notice something. This is not your bed, your home, or even your century. The world around you is a mess of tricorn hats, muskets, and people who think bathing once a month is basically spa treatment. Welcome to 1775, the American Revolution, the world's most chaotic divorce between the 13 colonies and Britain. You didn't get here by choice. No portal, no time machine with dramatic sparks. Just bam, you're in it. And judging by the smell, you've been here for a while. The air is thick with the scent of burning wood, horses, and something metallic. Gunpowder. Your ears ring with distant gunshots, the kind that echo through valleys like someone slamming doors in the sky. Men march past you, faces set in grim determination, muskets slung over shoulders, boots splattered in mud. They don't look at you because in this world, you're just another warm body, potentially useful, potentially disposable. Nobody cares about your name, your background, or your 5-year plan. They care about whether you can carry water, fire a gun, or not die before sundown. Somewhere to your left, a man yells about liberty. He's standing on a wooden crate, arms flailing like he's at a TED Talk for the terminally unwashed. His teeth, what's left of them, are stained from chewing tobacco, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. He's shouting about tyranny, taxes, and the King of England like they're all part of some villain origin story. People are listening, nodding, muttering, "Hear, hear," and looking like they'd fight a grizzly bear if it wore a red coat. You feel the energy in the air, the tension, the way people clutch their weapons like lifelines. This isn't just talk. This is the pre-game speech before the kind of battle where half the people want TB coming back. You try to stand, but your legs feel like jelly. You glance down at yourself. Gone are your modern clothes. Instead, you're wearing rough wool trousers that itch like you've been rolling in fiberglass, a linen shirt that smells faintly of smoke, and boots that have definitely seen better centuries. Your hands are calloused and dirty. Apparently, in whatever cruel cosmic joke brought you here, you've been volunteered into this mess. A cannon fires in the distance, boom, and your chest vibrates with the sound. Birds scatter from the treetops like they know better than to stick around. A horse gallops past, its rider shouting something about the British advancing. The crowd reacts instantly. Some people run to grab weapons. Others haul barrels of supplies toward the front lines. A few just stand frozen, caught between fear and duty. You're not sure which group you belong in. You take in the landscape, the muddy roads stretching toward a haze of smoke, the wooden fences lining fields that are now trampled into battlefields, the clusters of tents sagging under rain and neglect. Everything feels damp, heavy, and alive with the knowledge that this is history in motion, except it's the unglamorous version that never makes it into school textbooks. No heroic music, no perfectly framed shots, just cold, hunger, and the knowledge that the guy next to you might be dead before dinner. A young soldier runs past you, barely older than 16, his musket bouncing on his shoulder. His cheeks are hollow, his eyes too old for his face. He grins at you, maybe because you look even more confused than he does, before disappearing into the chaos. You think about how young everyone seems. This war isn't fought by mythical heroes. It's fought by farmers, blacksmiths, and kids who should still be worrying about chores, not whether a musket ball will tear through their chest. You hear someone behind you mutter, "God help us," and you almost laugh because you're not sure divine intervention is on the schedule today. What's on the schedule is marching, bleeding, and hoping you don't step on something explosive. You spot a group of women at the edge of the camp, tending to the wounded, rolling up bloodied sleeves. pressing cloth to wounds, pouring water over grime-covered hands. Their faces are tired, determined, and streaked with dirt. They're not here for glory. They're here because someone has to keep people alive long enough to fight again tomorrow. And then the shouting starts. It rolls across the camp like a wave. Orders barked, names called, the sharp crack of muskets being loaded. Men are forming lines, moving like a ragged organism toward the source of the noise. You're swept along in the current, boots slipping in the mud, your breath clouding in the cold air. Your heart hammers, your brain screaming that you are very much not prepared for this. A man with a thick accent and a scar across his cheek grabs your shoulder. "You're with me," he says, shoving a small powder horn into your hand. You stare at it, wondering what exactly you're supposed to do with it. He doesn't explain, just turns and keeps moving, trusting you'll figure it out or die trying. Somewhere ahead, you see flashes, muzzle fire in the mist, and hear the screams that follow. This is not a drill. This is war, up close and personal. The sound of musket balls whistling through the air makes your stomach drop. One hits the dirt near your foot, spraying mud onto your trousers. The smell of sulfur, blood, and fear mixes in the air until you can tell where one ends and the other begins. You're not a soldier. You're not a hero. But right now, history doesn't care. It's dragging you forward whether you like it or not. And the thought hits you, no one here knows how this will end. Sure, you know the broad strokes from the future, but to them, this is a coin toss between freedom and getting stomped by the most powerful empire on Earth. The guy next to you whispers, "If I die, tell my wife I fought bravely." You glance at him and think, "You've been picking your nose for the past 5 minutes, but sure, buddy, I'll tell her." You grip the powder horn tighter, the cold seeping into your bones, and take another step toward the chaos. Somewhere deep down, you realize you've crossed the point of no return. And as the sky above turns a darker shade of gray, you wonder, not for the first time, what the hell you're doing here, and whether anyone back home would believe you if you told them. Congratulations, you've been volunteered for service. And by volunteered, I mean you either said yes out of some naive sense of patriotism, or you were strongly encouraged by a man with a musket and no concept of personal boundaries. Either way, congratulations. You're officially part of the revolution. You might have imagined some noble, cinematic role, charging into battle, flag waving in the wind, your name destined for history books. Instead, you re-hauling barrels of water from a stream that smells suspiciously like a dead animal floated in it last week. Your day starts before dawn because apparently sleep is a luxury reserved for people who aren't at tea in the middle of fighting an empire. Someone bangs on a metal pot to wake everyone up, and you stumble out of your damp tent into the cold morning air. The grass crunches under your boots, but not in a peaceful winter wonderland kind of way. More in a, if you slip, you'll land face first in frozen mud kind of way. The first job? Fetch firewood, lots of it. Because without fire, you can't cook, you can't stay warm, and your fellow soldiers will start looking at you like maybe you'd taste good roasted. The firewood is never nearby. It's always in some thicket of trees a half-mile away, where you have to hack at logs with a dull axe while praying nothing poisonous is growing near your hands. You carry the heavy bundles back to camp, your shoulders screaming, your breath fogging in the cold air. By the time you drop it by the fire, your fingers are numb, and you're seriously considering whether frostbite might be an easy ticket home. Next up, water duty. Sounds easy, right? Grab a bucket, walk to the stream, fill it up. Except the stream is icy, the current is fast, and the bucket is made of wood that leaks just enough to make you question why humanity even bothered inventing it. You bend down, dip the bucket in, and notice the water has a faint brown tint. That's probably fine. People in this century don't even know what germs are, so bottoms up, I guess. You haul the bucket back, sloshing half of it onto yourself. Congratulations. You're now wet and cold, the ultimate comfort combo. After that comes the truly glamorous part of the job, cleaning weapons. Rows and rows of muskets, each one caked in mud, powder residue, and what you sincerely hope is just rust. You sit cross-legged on the frozen ground, scrubbing the barrels with rags that smell like they've been used to mop up a battlefield, which, to be fair, they probably have. Your hands go numb from the cold, your wrists ache, and there's always some captain wandering by to criticize your technique. "You missed a spot," he says, leaning over your shoulder like he's Michelangelo inspecting the Sistine Chapel. You smile politely, but in your head, you're plotting his mysterious disappearance. When you're not cleaning weapons, you're making ammunition packets, rolling little paper tubes of gunpowder and shot. It's tedious, repetitive, and the kind of work that makes you wish for any distraction, until you remember that distraction in this context usually means enemy attack. You keep rolling, your fingertips stained black, your back sore from hunching over the table. Lunch is, well, calling it lunch feels generous. The stew is a mystery blend of boiled root vegetables, scraps of meat, and an alarming number of bones. If you're lucky, you get bread too. Hard, dry bread that could double as a building material. You dunk it in the stew to soften it enough so you don't break a tooth. It's warm, at least, and warmth is enough to make you almost grateful. Almost. After lunch, someone decides the latrine needs digging. This is, without question, the worst job in camp. You re-handed a shovel and pointed toward a spot far enough away from the tents to avoid the worst of the smell, but close enough that you still feel like you're living next to an open sewer. The ground is hard as stone, your shovel blade bouncing off it like a bad joke. Eventually, you break through the frozen layer and start digging, the air filling with an odor that makes you gag so hard your eyes water. By the end, you're covered in mud and questioning all your life choices. Just when you think you might get a break, someone calls for a messenger to run a note to the next encampment. It's a few miles away, through thick woods and over frozen streams. You volunteer, not because you're particularly noble, but because it is one of the few jobs where you get to be alone for a while. The path is rough, your breath coming in sharp bursts as you jog, clutching the folded paper like it's worth more than your life, which honestly it probably is. The woods are eerily quiet, and you keep glancing over your shoulder, half expecting to see redcoats or wolves, or worse, redcoats riding wolves. You make it back just before sunset, legs aching, and collapse onto a log by the fire. Evening chores aren't much better. You help haul barrels of salted meat from the supply wagon, each one heavier than your will to live. You patch holes in tents with whatever scraps of cloth you can find, your needles slipping in the dim light. The smoke from the fires stings your eyes, but the warmth keeps you from wandering off into the woods and pretending you died. And then, when all the jobs are done, or at least ignored until tomorrow, you sit by the fire with the others. Your body aching, your stomach growling, your brain buzzing from exhaustion. The men around you tell stories, some funny, some sad, all of them tinged with the knowledge that any one of you might not be here next week. You stare into the flames, letting the heat soak into your bones, and try not to think about tomorrow's chores, because you know exactly what tomorrow will bring. More hauling, more cleaning, more digging, more doing the jobs nobody wants. And you'll do them. Because here, survival isn't about heroics. It's about getting through the day without collapsing. And if you complain too loudly, someone will remind you that liberty doesn't win itself. You nod, smile weakly, and poke at the fire, wondering if liberty will also do your laundry. The people around you are your comrades. But that was just a nice way of saying strangers you are stuck with until one of you dies. You didn't choose them. They didn't choose you. You're all here because fate, or poor life decisions, landed you in the same mud-soaked, lice-infested patch of history. And wow, do they come in every flavor? First, there's the overzealous patriot. You can hear him before you see him, usually shouting slogans like they're magic spells that will make the British disappear. No taxation without representation, he bellows, while you're trying to sleep, eat, or just exist. His beard is wild, his eyes wilder, and he treats every conversation like a chance to recruit you into his personal army of enthusiasm. You nod politely, but you can't help thinking that if the King of England showed up right now, the poor guy would combust from pure rage before a single musket fired. Then there's the deserting farmer. He's a ghost. Sometimes here, sometimes mysteriously gone just before the fighting starts. Always back afterward, though, with a perfectly reasonable excuse. "Oh, I had to check on my crops," he says, as if corn really cares what's going on during a war. Everyone knows he's hiding out in his barn until it's safe, but no one calls him on it because, honestly, who wouldn't want to avoid being shot at? And, of course, there's your commanding officer, the captain. His uniform is spotless, his boots shine, and somehow his tent is always dry even when yours floods like a miniature swamp. He speaks in orders, not sentences, and believes leadership means blaming you for everything from muddy rifles to the weather. If it rains, it's because you didn't prepare the camp properly. If it's sunny, it's because you failed to anticipate enemy movements. You fantasize about him being reassigned to somewhere far, far away, preferably with a high population of mosquitoes. The camp also has its resident gossip. She's technically here to cook and clean, but she seems to know everyone's business before they do. She sidles up to you while you're mending a torn sleeve and whispers, "Did you hear about Private Miller? Ran off with a British girl." You shake your head, but 5 minutes later she's telling someone else that you're secretly related to the governor of Massachusetts. You've learned to keep your mouth shut unless you want your words turned into tomorrow's entertainment. Your so-called allies are a ragtag bunch. Blacksmiths, farmers, shopkeepers, teenagers who should still be delivering bread, not carrying muskets. They're all trying to adjust to this new, chaotic life. Some joke constantly to keep from crying. Others brood in silence, staring into the fire like it might reveal a future where they're not freezing, hungry, and waiting for an enemy bullet. And then there are the enemies. You've seen the redcoats from a distance, their bright uniforms practically screaming, "Shoot me!" They march in perfect lines, their muskets gleaming like they've been polished by an army of obsessive butlers. You can almost hear their officers' clipped British accents barking orders, every syllable sharp enough to cut paper. In a weird way, they look clean, which feels unfair. You're covered in mud, lice, and possibly squirrel stew, and they look ready for a parade. It's like losing a fashion contest while also fearing for your life. The first time you face them up close, it's not some grand battle. It's a tense standoff on the edge of a field, your group staring them down from behind a crooked fence. Your musket feels heavy in your hands, your palms slick with sweat. The redcoats stare back, calm and disciplined, as if they've done this 100 times. One of your comrades mutters something insulting under his breath, but you're too busy trying not to throw up to join in. Then there are the loyalists, people who live here but still support the crown. You never know who they are until someone disappears in the night, or supplies go missing, or the British suddenly show up in exactly the right place to make your life harder. You start to suspect everyone just a little bit. Even the nice old man who gave you bread last week. What if he has slipping intel to the enemy? You find yourself watching people's faces for the tiniest twitch, the smallest lie. It makes every conversation feel like a game of cards where you don't know the rules. In the rare moments when you're not actively working or worrying, you sit with a few others around the fire. You share food, stories, and the occasional bottle of something that burns going down. One guy brags about wrestling a bear once, which you're 90% sure is a lie, but no one challenges it because, frankly, you need the distraction. Another sings a song about liberty in a voice so off-key it could be used as a weapon. You laugh, not because it's funny, but because the alternative is thinking about what might happen tomorrow. Sometimes the conversations turn dark. Someone talks about a friend who didn't make it back from patrol, or a family left behind in a village now under British control. You see the way their eyes go distant, the way their hands tighten around their mugs. It's a reminder that under all the bluster and bad jokes, everyone here is scared. Even the captain. though he'd never admit it. And yet, in the middle of all this chaos, you start to form strange bonds with these people. You learn who snores the loudest, who hogs the blankets, who can actually cook something edible. You know who will stand with you when things get bad, and who will mysteriously vanish until the danger's over. You don't trust them completely. This is war, after all. But you trust them enough to share a fire, to pass the bread, to watch each other's backs when the shooting starts. The truth is, you didn't come here to make friends. But in a place like this, where the nights are long and the danger is constant, you take whatever connection you can get. Because tomorrow, one of them might be gone. And if it's you who disappears, you hope they'll at least remember you as the one who shared the last bite of bread, not the one who couldn't handle the mud. When the sun goes down, the world changes. The camp that was all noise and motion in daylight turns into something quieter, sharper, like the volume's been turned down but the tension's been cranked up to 11. You huddle near the fire, trying to soak in its warmth while pretending you're not watching the shadows just beyond the glow. Every flicker of light makes the darkness look alive, like it's breathing, shifting, waiting. The cold at night is different. It's meaner. It seeps through your boots, creeps up your legs, and wraps around your bones like it's settling in for the long haul. You pull your blanket tighter, but it's thin and damp, and the wind cuts through it like a blade. You can't stop shivering, and the sound of your own teeth clicking is somehow louder than the quiet murmur of the men around you. Someone coughs nearby, a deep, wet cough that makes you think of infection, and you suddenly wish you'd slept farther away from everyone. The forest around you is full of noises you can't quite name. There's the distant howl of something. Wolf? Dog? Really determined guy with a sore throat? And the occasional snap of a twig that makes your head jerk up. You tell yourself it's just animals, but your hand still goes to your musket, your fingers brushing the cold metal. It's a comfort and a curse, because the weight of it reminds you that out there in the dark, there are people whose whole goal tonight might be to make sure you never wake up. Some nights, the danger is real. You'll be half asleep, drifting somewhere between dreams and frostbite when the alarm goes up. Voices shout. Boots pound against frozen dirt. The clatter of weapons being grabbed is followed by that unmistakable sound, a musket shot splitting the night. The first time it happens, your heart slams into your ribs so hard you think it might break through. You stumble to your feet, eyes still adjusting, ears ringing, body ready to run but not sure where. Men rush past you, some toward the noise, others just anywhere that isn't here. But not every shot means the British are attacking. Sometimes it's a false alarm. A drunk soldier firing at a shadow or a sentry spooked by the wind. One night, the whole camp scrambled for a fight, only to find out the enemy was a cow that had wandered too close. You laughed then, but the adrenaline had still left your hands shaking for hours afterward. Even when there's no open fight, the nights have their own brand of danger. Thieves slip through the dark looking for supplies to steal. Spies move like ghosts between camps. The loyalists, those locals who'd rather see the crown win, sometimes sneak in to sabotage things. A missing powder horn, a cut rope on the supply wagon, little things that might not seem like much until you realize they could get you all killed tomorrow. And then there's the cold truth no one likes to admit. Some of the danger is from your own side. Boredom, stress, and bad liquor are a bad mix. You've seen arguments over rations turn into fistfights, seen knives drawn over who gets the bigger blanket. You sleep with your boots on, not just in case you have to run, but because you don't want someone taking them while you're unconscious. One night stands out. You're lying on the hard ground, eyes half closed, listening to the wind whistle through the trees. Then you hear it, soft footsteps, too careful to be someone just wandering around. You freeze, every muscle tensing, straining to listen. They're getting closer, slow and deliberate. You grip your musket, your breath shallow. The footsteps stop just beyond the firelight. You can't see a face, just a shadow moving slightly, like whoever it is watching, waiting. And then, as silently as they came, they slip back into the dark. You don't sleep for the rest of the night, staring at that patch of black until dawn. The worst part of the night isn't the cold or the noise. It is the way time stretches. Minutes feel like hours, hours feel like days. You lie there with your blanket pulled over your head, counting your own heartbeats, listening for anything out of place. The fire burns low, the smell of smoke mixing with damp earth and unwashed bodies. Somewhere, someone starts humming a tune, low and soft, like a lullaby for the doomed. You find yourself listening to it, your mind drifting between the melody and the thought of whether you'll even see the sun come up. When sleep finally comes, it's not restful. It's broken, restless, filled with strange dreams. You wake every time a twig snaps or a log shifts in the fire. Your neck aches, your back feels like it's been beaten, and your feet never quite warm up. By the time the first gray light of morning filters through the trees, you're exhausted, your eyes gritty, your body sore from lying on frozen ground. And yet, in some twisted way, you're relieved. Morning means the dark is over, at least for now. You can see what's coming. You can watch the road, the tree line, the faces around you. Night hides too much. It lets fear and imagination run wild, until you're half convinced every shadow holds a redcoat with your name on a musket ball. Still, as you stand up and stretch your stiff limbs, you know the next night is waiting. It always is. And tomorrow, when the sun drops and the cold creeps in again, you'll pull your blanket tight, keep your musket close, and wait for whatever the dark decides to throw at you. Because in this place, surviving the night is just another part of the war. You stand on a quiet battlefield at dawn. The smoke from yesterday's chaos still hanging in the air like some lazy ghost who hasn't figured out it is supposed to leave. The war is over. Or, at least the big loud part of it is. The British are gone, licking their wounds back across the Atlantic. And you? You're looking around thinking, cool, we won. Now what? Because here, as the awkward truth, the end of a revolution isn't it like the end of a movie? There's no credits rolling, no triumphant freeze frame. It is more like waking up after a wild party and realizing you still have to clean the mess and pay the bills. Freedom? Oh yeah, that's great. But freedom also comes with this terrifying little asterisk. You're now responsible for everything. The world doesn't change in a neat cinematic montage. It changes like a bad hair day. Messy, uneven, full of unexpected tangles. America's new government isn't some sleek, ready-to-go machine. It's duct tape and prayer holding things together while everyone argues about taxes, borders, and whether George Washington should be king. Spoiler, he's not into it. Meanwhile, Europe's looking at this whole United States thing like it's a toddler with a sword. Cute, but also dangerous. The revolution sends shockwaves far beyond these muddy roads. France sees America's rebellion and thinks, yeah, let's try that, which goes well for about 5 minutes before things get guillotiny. And everywhere else, people are whispering about the idea that maybe you can tell a king to shove it. But let's not get too romantic about it. The revolution didn't magically solve every problem. It didn't erase inequality, poverty, or, let's be real, the whole slavery situation, which the Founding Fathers awkwardly sweep under the rug like a guest they don't want anyone to notice. Women still can't vote. Native Americans actively losing land faster than you can say manifest destiny. This shiny new America is a work in progress, emphasis on work, and yet the world shifts. Power isn't just for the crown anymore. Regular people, well, regular land-owning white dudes have a say in government. And that's a seed that will eventually, after a lot of arguing, bloodshed, and Twitter fights 2 centuries later, grow into a broader idea of rights. And here's where you start to feel it. You are standing in the middle of history's messy kitchen. The dishes aren't washed, the counters are sticky, and the smell of burnt bread lingers. But there's also a strange kind of hope in the air. The revolution has cracked open the idea that things can change if you push hard enough, shout loud enough, or throw enough tea into a harbor. People are watching, people are learning, and yes, some are already plotting their own revolts. The American Revolution becomes the blueprint for underdogs everywhere. It's loud, imperfect, and full of contradictions, but it is proof that the impossible isn't as impossible as it looks. So why does it still matter? Because this is one of those rare moments where a group of people looked at the most powerful empire on earth and said, "Nah, we're good," and then actually pulled it off. It's the kind of story that gets passed down, reshaped, and reimagined until it's part myth, part warning label. It's a reminder that change is rarely neat, never painless, and always complicated. And maybe, just maybe, it's also a challenge. To not settle for the world as it is, but to imagine the world as it could be, even if it means making a mess in the process. So, you made it through. You survived the war, the chaos, the awkward first years of a new nation. But here's the real question. If you'd been here, in the mud and the smoke and the uncertainty, would you have stuck it out? Would you have believed enough in the idea of change to risk everything? Or would you have played it safe, kept your head down, and hoped the storm passed? Be honest. Drop your answer in the comments. And hey, smash that like button before things get revolutionary again.